I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today our show is with the law firm of Bator and Berlin. Hurry back and join us. Here we go. Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today our show is with the law firm of Bator and Berlin, and our guest is attorney Gregory Bator. Hi, Gregory Bator.
Marsha, good to see you.
Glad to have you here.
How are you?
I'm fine. Now, Gregory, this show in particular has to do with a law firm, which is the law firm that you're in partnership with Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Give us an overview about the law firm that you're with and, you know, your role there, because I know this is a special show for aging, but we want to know overall about yourself first in the firm.
Well, our firm is located in Birmingham, and we've been there for some 15 years or so. It seems like yesterday, though. And we do a lot of work for elder Americans, of which we're all becoming, and there's quite a few more. You know, I read just recently that presently there are about half as many elder Americans as there's going to be in 2030, which is surprisingly just a short time away. So we do a lot of work as far as for older Americans in their estate planning needs and their health care decisions, and growingly with their needs for housing. You know, you see these assisted living homes popping up all over. There's a reason for it.
Okay, so 15 years track record means you guys know the whole gamut of what's going on in the lives of elderly people as we speak.
Well, we've had a lot of different circumstances that have walked through the office, that's for sure.
Okay. Now, let's start off with a particular question. And I think one of the concerns for a lot of elderly people is there such thing as a last will and testament, and what does that really mean?
Well, a last will and testament, or just will, as people commonly refer to it, is really a roadmap for people after they're gone. I like to refer to a last will and testament as one of the documents of death, meaning it only comes into play after we're gone. But after we're gone, should we be able to make some decisions and tell people what we want to happen to our money, our welfare, our properties? And a will does that. A will provides a roadmap for the courts and for our heirs to know how things should be handled after we're gone. You know, there is one misconception, though, that people have about wills. Would you like to know what that is?
Sure.
Well, a lot of people think that when they have a will, they avoid probate court, that all they have to do is sign a will and then they avoid probate court. Well, that's a big misconception, Marsha, because when people develop a will, what that does is it tells a probate court how their properties and their money should go to other people. Mm-hmm. Or if they have minor children, who should take care of those minor children. But it doesn't, as a lot of people may think, avoid probate court. See, a will gets entered into probate court. The probate court accepts it if it was properly witnessed and signed, and then the probate court uses that document to distribute your money and give other people power over the things that you may have left, like your minor children or properties that you may have.
Okay, now, when you say something about, like, get organized, when you say get organized in reference to preparing for dying or death and dying, or if your loved one is sick, say, like, you don't have to be a older person to actually be preparing your will, but if a person is a cancer patient or something and they feel like, well, it's coming to the turning point, how is it that they should approach their loved ones, or how does an attorney work along with the loved ones to help assist the remaining family members?
Well, it's a good question. You know, most of the time when people walk in my office, it's already a crisis moment. And so we deal with situations that are emergencies or crises. And unfortunately, when other people walk into other law offices as well, they spend more money than they probably have to. Ideally, they should never be in a crisis moment and walk into my office. but they really have the opportunity now, before a crisis hits, to do some proper planning. Some of the things, there's a variety of things, Marcia, but some of the things that they can do are as simple as consolidating all their important papers, like a will, or if they have a power of attorney, or if they have deeds, consolidating those in one place. But then letting somebody know where that important place is. I can't tell you the number of times I've had sons or daughters or husbands or wives come into my office and say, well, now what do I do? And I say, well, did your husband or wife, leave a will or leave a power of attorney or leave some instrument that would give a roadmap, some direction? Well, where do I find that? So now getting organized, in my mind, means working to have the right documents in place, talking with a loved one or an important person in your life and identifying where those documents are, and as simple as consolidating them, not having them scattered all over metropolitan Detroit or all over your house.
Now, what do you think about safe deposit box? Do you think a safe deposit box is a good place for a person to actually store all their documents? I mean, a lot of our elders may have them in the Bible, may have them in the shoe box, may have them under the mattress, old picture frame. And I think a lot of people don't think that, oh, they'll find it when I'm gone, or, oh, well, if they find it, no, so bad if they don't. So would you recommend the person actually purchase or, get into the fact of having a safe deposit box?
Well, a safe deposit box is located at a bank, and you pay money on an annual basis for it. And usually it's pretty nominal. And that's a good, safe place to keep your valuables. But if you die or if you become incapacitated, who has access to that safe deposit box? And how did they get access? Unless their name is on the safe deposit box with you, they would have to go to a court, a probate court, and get a judge's order to allow them to enter into that safe deposit box. So that can be expensive. But does it mean that the son or daughter or next door neighbor should have their name on that safe deposit box with you? No.
Right.
No. Because if my name was on your safe deposit box, well, I could get all the jewels in the world just by going to that bank and getting all your jewels. And that, I know you would want me to have those, though, wouldn't you?
Well, I think a lot of people find it hard to actually have their papers stored somewhere and feel that it's pretty safe, whether you're young or old. Because I'm going to ask you, this is a twofold question. Say a person goes into a coma, no particular age, but they go into a coma. And they just so happen to have on a napkin their last so-called will and testaments. They just wrote on a napkin, to my wife, I want her to have the house, to my kids, you can have my car, blah, blah, blah. And it's just on a napkin. Can you use that napkin in a court of law?
Oh, that's a good question, too. There is such a thing called a holographic will. It's a big term, but a holographic will would be one where I write out on that napkin in my own handwriting, and I sign my name and I date it of what I want to have happen with my properties. Well, a court of law would consider that as a valid legal document. But Marcia, you've got to ask yourself, is that really the way people want their estate distributed? And I don't think it is. One of the things that I'd like to talk about tonight is how can we, with our good minds, our good bodies, make the decisions over our own life for all time, even beyond the point of our incapacity or even our death. And individuals, I strongly believe, should make all of the decisions over their money and over their body for as long as they can, even after they lose their marbles. And there's a way to do that. And that really starts to put the house in order and tell us a lot, too, about where to put those documents and who to give them access to. So we can talk a bit about that if you'd like.
Sure. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Give us a clear definition of what is a power of attorney. What's the role of a power of attorney?
Well, I put the power of attorney into a category of documents of life. I mentioned a few minutes ago that a will is a document of death.
Right.
And it's a document of death because it only comes into effect after we stop breathing and after we're gone. But equally important are documents of life. And a document of life is a power of attorney. And there's another one called a healthcare declaration. It also comes under the name of a living will. Power of attorney, what is that? I could give you, Marcia, the power to make all of the decisions over my money, over my house, over my car, over all the things that are near and dear to me. My car is not the most near and dear thing to me. My wife wouldn't like that if I said that. But I could give you, through a legal instrument, the right to make those decisions for me about those properties and those material possessions. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, if I became incapacitated, if I didn't have a document like a power of attorney, and something happened to me, a car accident, a heart attack, all those things that we don't want to happen but can happen, what would happen if I didn't have any document is my spouse or my next door neighbor or my brother would have to hire an attorney, generally, go to probate court, and be appointed as the guardian or conservator. You may have heard of those terms. In order to make the decisions over my life. Now, when I come to from that accident or heart attack, and I don't want my next door neighbor to be making those decisions for me, I have to undo that. And I find that my checkbook is probably about $1,000 to $1,500 lighter. Why? Well, whoever went to court to be appointed probably hired an attorney. They're going to spend my money to do that since it's over my welfare. The court, before they give my next door neighbor the right to make decisions for me, is going to want to make sure that I really can't make those decisions and will appoint an independent attorney to come and visit me in the hospital. Who do you think pays that bill? I do. So right now what an individual could do is, with their own good mind and under their own power and their own decision, I could say, you know, if something ever terrible like that happens to me, I want Marcia Florence to make the decisions over my welfare. And I would write that down and put it in a piece of paper, and then if something happened, you could pull that piece of paper out and you could make the decisions for me.
Now let me ask you
cheaper,
this.
faster.
If you were to do that, should a person have a witness so that it's like, is this definitely your handwriting? Is this definitely dated and signed by you? Is that something that you mail back to yourself and never open, or you put in the safe deposit box, or you give this person and say, never open this?
It's too many questions.
Okay, I know.
All right. But here's the easy answer for it. A durable power of attorney, or a power of attorney, a document of life, is a very simple document. It's boilerplate. You hear that term, boilerplate. Very simple document. But it's very important that it is signed in the right way, because it is a very powerful document. It shouldn't cost much. Any good attorney who deals with probate or estate law work or elder law work is capable of preparing a power of attorney. And that's something that you should spend a little bit of money to make sure it's done properly. You know, how often do you get in a mistake or a situation where you do your own plumbing and you end up with 6 trips to Damon Hardware or whatever hardware you may use?
I was basically speaking in terms of low-income individuals.
Right.
If a person is low-income, they may not have the money to invest like that.
That's true. But you generally should look to the agencies that are out there. If a person is elderly, so many people belong to AARP, or so many people belong to a community area on agency council. And generally through those organizations, you can get a very inexpensive document prepared like that. For instance, I know with AARP that if you contact them, they can refer you to a capable attorney. And a durable power of attorney, I believe it's like a $35 charge. Now that's generally within most people's financial wherewithal.
That's budgetable.
Yeah, and it's an important document of life. People, young and old, really should have it.
Okay, well, I got to check into that. Well, Gregory, let's take a commercial break, and we'll be back with some more good stuff.
Very good.
Stork on 3.
Oh, please come here.
Hi, and welcome back to the second half of the show. For those of you who are just now joining us, we have the law firm of Bator and Berlin, and our guest is attorney Gregory Bator. Now, Gregory, this is a good piece for us because I know people are at home asking these famous questions, and one in particular, I know somebody's at home saying, what is a living will?
Good question again.
Okay.
That also has a lot of different names. Some people may hear living will referred to as a power of attorney for medical care, or sometimes it's referred to as a health care declaration. But it's that document that a hospital administrator will give you when you're being rolled in for your surgery, because they want to know, when you're under the knife, who has the power to make the medical decisions for you. Now, I always tell my clients, well, let's make that decision without the pressure of a surgery right in front of you. You can make that decision right now. You know, before I mentioned documents of life and death, this is a document of life. It's a document that tells the world, if I suddenly am incapable of making the decisions over my body, then I want Joe Smith, or I want my sister to make those decisions for me. So it's a very important thing that we can do to control the decisions over our personal well-being.
But how early should one have a form like that done? I mean, if you know you have cancer, MS, cerebral palsy, or anything like that, should that be done upon those conditions or just done, period?
Well, obviously, if those conditions arise in your life and you don't have a document, sure, as soon as you can. But a document like a living will is something that people as young as 21 should have. And it goes back to the theme that I mentioned before. I want to make all of the decisions over my money and over my body for as long as I can, even if I lose consciousness or even if I'm incapacitated. You know, I ask myself, why shouldn't I make those decisions beforehand? And I can. I can designate somebody that I trust to make the decisions and use their good judgment. I don't want to be left with a probate court or a hospital administrator or my relatives to be uncertain over who should make the decision for me. With my good mind, with my right mind right now, I want to say, this person makes these decisions. And that's part of what a living will can do. Now, there's one more thing, too. A living will these days can allow us, if we're in very terrible physical condition, like a coma or a vegetative state, or just in such horrible, horrible pain, we can tell the world through our patient advocate that if I ever get in such a horrible state like that, I want the plug to be pulled, or I want certain procedures not to be followed. Now, Jack Kevorkian's name can't appear, or phone number can't appear in the document. Michigan law goes just shy of allowing you to put a phone number like that in the document.
And then, you know, that's an important question, because if people, family members always assume that, well, if you're on a breathing ventilator and you're in a coma, one or the other or both, that you suffered long enough. And I don't want to see my loved one suffer any further. Or they say, the doctor calls and says, she's fading fast, but we can revive her. What do you want to do? But yet there is no living will. I think that's a very hard decision to make without the living will. And yet I'm the kind of person that says, let me go when I go. Don't pull the plug. I don't care. Remember that, people. I don't care what you say, how bad I look. Let me go when I go, because who can really determine if a person is actually suffering or not? You know, and what does the word suffering really mean? You know, so I think that, in my opinion, that when you say have a last will like that, a living will like that, and you said as young as 21, if you are comfortable with your family members, how do you go about talking about it?
Well, those are some of the toughest conversations to have with people, but yet so very important. You know, I can have the best set of documents in the world, but if they're squirreled away somewhere and nobody knows where they are, and the time comes to use them, well, all of that good planning that I may have done personally is for naught. So you have to raise these topics. Normally, with a power of attorney or a living will, when you name someone, well, it's important to sit down and tell the person, I have a living will. And a living will means this. You'll receive some explanation from the person who helped you draft it. And I've given you this power, and I want you to make the decisions along these lines for me. And sometimes simply by opening up the conversation in that way can be very helpful. And telling them, well, I have my accountant or my banker or my sister who has an envelope. If ever anything should happen to me, that's where you go, or an attorney, whatever it might be. But yeah,
that's a scary subject. People always think that as soon as someone talks about the will and the plot, they're on their way out.
Right.
Okay.
You know, it's a tough conversation for parents to have with their children,
Right.
but so very important. And sometimes you can use the vehicle of one document, or just open up the conversation by asking the other person, even if it's a younger person, well, what would you want to happen to you if such and such occurred? And just to open up the subject with a very broad, open-ended question like that is important. You know, it can go a step further, too. If you are a person who has elder parents, it's important that you know in their group of friends who their group of friends is, and who they would want to be around them at appropriate times.
But is it appropriate for a child of an elderly parent to approach the parent and say, Mom, we need to go and see an attorney, or Mom, we need to discuss what would you like, you know, in the event of your death? Do you think that's a good way to go into it with the parent?
Well, you know, we're all children.
No matter
for
what.
as long as possible with elderly parents. So it's hard for the child to raise that conversation. You know, out of respect for our elders, we're taught that from when we're young, and hopefully we abide by that. So I think more frequently it's the parent who still has that responsibility to broach the subject. Now, if your mother or your father, who is elderly, doesn't want to talk about it, well, you shouldn't be shy either about saying, Mom, shouldn't you be making these decisions? You've taught me all my whole life to be making my own decisions. Well, Mom, same thing for you. I want you to make your own decisions. I don't want to make decisions for you. And if something should ever happen to you, Mom, not that I want it, I don't obviously want it, but if that something should happen, Mom, what decision do you want to make?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Gregory, that's kind of scary, because if you come from a household with 2 or more siblings, somebody say, he's planning to kill Mother. He's doing it. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but it's like, you know, the approach of it is so difficult that I think people are so used to going through the motions at the last moment, being under pressure, crying more so than they should have to. Everything is just backed up. You know, how it could be made simple with going to see an attorney and getting things straightened out or laid out like we would like to. And then some people can't afford it. It's so many things that back people up from not wanting to do this, that I want to ask you, do your firm ever go out in the public and speak, you know, and make these type of presentations so that the public will be aware that, hey, you can come to us and we can do this? I mean,
we love to do that. That's why we're, you know, on a show like this. This is a wonderful vehicle for it. But, you know, it goes back to, I agree, talking about death and end of life. That's tough to do, and nobody wants to do that. We want to live. And the documents that I've talked about tonight, when we break them down into documents of life and documents of death, and when we put it in terms of who should make these important decisions over our lives, well, Marcia, you want to make all your own decisions, and I certainly want to make all my own decisions, and that may be a way to broach the subject. You make your own decisions, and what decisions would they be, Mom? What decisions would they be?
Well, Gregory, before we wrap up, let me ask you a question. Give us some information on alternative housing for our elder ones.
Good. We have a lot of choices now, Marcia. The main choice is, I want to stay in my house. Probably your mom or dad wants to stay in their house for as long as possible. And now we have a lot of assistance through agencies in the state of Michigan. There's a lot more services available, so Mom and Dad can stay in their own home. And let's do that as long as we can. But sometimes it's not safe or comfortable or appropriate, and then we have to look at other choices. And we don't just have a choice anymore of just a nursing home. You know, you see as you drive through Metro Detroit these assisted living homes and homes for the aged and adult foster care homes that are in neighborhoods. And each of those may be an appropriate setting for the type of care that an elderly person needs. And each one has a little bit different care. For instance, an adult foster care home, you're going to get 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care for all of your needs. Someone's going to be there preparing your meals, taking you on activities. A little less care, but sometimes even a nicer setting, is a larger facility like an assisted living home. There may be more social activities, there may be more interaction, still 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care. Same thing like a home for the aged. I guess the important choice, Marcia, to know is it's not just a nursing home anymore. And there's a whole variety of choices available.
Okay, but should family members seek out attorney's assistance before actually trying to place their loved ones in such facilities?
Well, unfortunately, not necessarily an attorney alone, but it's a crisis time, an emergency time, and a lot of times people let it go to the last minute before finding a place for mom or dad, and oh my, that's a tough decision to make. So a lot of times when you're at that crisis point, you do need to turn to people who have knowledge of alternative housing choices. And they could be a case manager at a hospital, a discharge planner, they could be an attorney in elder law. There are a variety of people out there now who have some good ability to make judgments and provide help.
Now, AARP and Area Agency on Aging, could they be any help in housing or placement?
Well, they're resources.
Right.
They have lists, they have names of places where people can go, but they're not the type of agency, they're not in the business of saying, well, Marcia, tell me about your mom or dad and I'll help you make the particular decision.
Okay.
They can lead you in the right direction, and they can lead you to people that could analyze your mom or dad's situation and then give you suggestions on, well, they don't need nursing home care. Let them stay in their own house with such and such agency.
I think a lot of people are confused by the fact that they don't know where to get the answers from between the difference between adult foster care, adult care, senior care, skilled nursing care, what the difference between the senior high-rise and, independent living. It's so many of them out there now that I'm grateful to know that we have a variety instead of just always thinking, well, this is the end, they're going to pass at home or whatever. It's good to know we have a variety of assisted living services for our loved ones.
It's the spice of life, that's for sure.
You got
and
that.
It's nice that we have all of these choices now. And it's tough to make the right choice, but as well as with the increasing number of places, there's a larger and larger number of people who know how to help you to make the right decision. So we shouldn't be afraid of reaching out for some help at a crisis moment like that.
Okay. So your law firm definitely, I wouldn't say specialized, but I'm going to ask you, do you guys actually specialize in elder care, or is it a variety?
Well, elder law is a big part of our practice,
Okay.
And we reach and deal with situations involving homes and estates and wills and housing. It's a beautiful practice.
Okay.
I hear a lot of wonderful stories, and we're able to provide, I think, a lot of good care for people.
Okay. Well, Gregory, I'm glad you came to see us. Definitely want to ask you to come back. I'm sure we didn't get to cover half the bases of what questions people have to ask, so we're going to ask our listening and viewing audience to please give us a call here at the Just Ask line. Our number is 248-988-0250. If you have any questions for Attorney Bator or any of our past guests, you should call us or give us a letter or two, and we'd be glad to answer all your questions. I encourage the audience to do so that people like yourself, Gregory Bator, will definitely know that, hey, your services are useful to us, and we invite you to come back.
My pleasure.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as usual, I try to give you what you need, which is information in relation to services that you don't even know where they are. So this kind of information is good for you. Give us a call at Just Ask. Tell us what you want to hear. The name of the show is Just Ask. We're waiting to hear from you. Write us, call us, whatever. I'm your host, Marcia Florence, for Just Ask. And what do I always say? If you know someone with a disability, don't be afraid to ask. Just ask. I'm your host. Thank you.